In today's session we'll be looking briefly at the drawing tools available to you in SketchUp. These include the rectangle tool, the pencil tool, the circle tool, the arc tool, what's known as a polygon tool, and then a free drawing tool. You'll probably find that you tend to use most of all the rectangle and the pencil, but as I said, we'll be looking at all of those today. If we start with the rectangle tool, just take your select tool, go up, and you can see up the top there's a rectangle, or it's actually a square, but it's a four-sided figure. Click on that and you'll notice your cursor changes, and it changes to a pencil with a rectangle next to it. Now, to make a rectangle, it is simply a matter of clicking on a point and dragging it to another point. If we have a look at our axes here and we go to the middle, and once you hover over that, it'll say origin. So if you click on the origin and then you drag out, in this case virtually horizontally, you can see the actual rectangle being made. Depending on which direction you drag will depend on where the actual rectangle is created. Okay, so perhaps if you drag out that way, once you're happy with the size of the rectangle, you can click. But if you notice down in the bottom right hand corner, you'll see the actual size of the rectangle in millimeters. So you've got one or two options. You can either click it out and guesstimate the size of the rectangle, or say for example you wanted to create a rectangle which was 1000 millimeters by 2000 millimeters. It's simply a matter of not clicking yet, but typing in 1000, and you'll notice it's coming up down in the bottom right corner where the dimensions are, comma 2000. So it's 1000 comma 2000, and then press enter. And what it's actually created, and I'll zoom in on this, is a rectangle 1000 by 2000. Now, if you're not sure, you can always go up the top, select your tape measure, click on that, and go down and measure the two sides, and you'll see that side's 1000. We measure the long side, hopefully, yes it is, it's 2000. So you've got two ways of utilising of setting up your rectangle tool. Just a word of warning, it's probably easier, if I get rid of this rectangle, it's probably easier to actually use the numbers, because quite often, say for example I click there and I think, oh yes, I want quite a big rectangle, so I'll put it out, make it a bit larger than that, like so. All of a sudden I've drawn a rectangle. If I take the measure tool again, it's 18,000 millimeters, which is 18 meters by 24 meters. It's far too big compared to the things that you'll be requiring. So when you use the rectangle tool, it's a good habit to get into of actually saying, okay, I want a rectangle from there to there, 5,000 comma 1,200 millimeters, and so that's exactly what you'll get. You'll notice when you do the rectangle tool as well, and I'll get rid of those again, excuse me, you'll notice that when you get the rectangle tool, use the rectangle tool again, that it hugs the axes. In this case it's the green and the red, in this case it's the green and the red at the opposite end, so it always fits around the axes. Now, where it will change is if you make a rectangle and you say, okay, I want to do another rectangle here. It'll notice, see, it's actually linked to that point. And you can, again, put your rectangles anywhere you want. It is just a matter of trying and playing with the rectangle tool until you're fairly confident with it. You can intersect rectangles like so. That does come in handy on some occasions. You'll notice though, what actually happens if you think about it, this, we'll zoom in a bit here, this rectangle here was a solid rectangle with one surface on it. But if we click on it, you'll notice what's happened is that by intersecting each other, we break it into different shapes. So instead of having a rectangle now, this would have been our complete rectangle, but we don't have that anymore. It's broken it into shapes. Because each one of these lines now, and you can see as I highlight the other ones, each one of these lines has broken up and divided up the shapes. And that again can be handy. We want to put a window or a door in an area, we can easily delete a surface. The other thing you can do is that you can delete lines to create different shapes. So your rectangle tool is quite a versatile tool. Okay, I'll just get rid of those. The other tool that you'll use a great deal will be, of course, your line tool. If you click on that, and fortunately with the line tool as well, it has a tendency to, actually I'll move out further, has a tendency to snap to the axis. You notice if I click and drag that way, and this is something that I'd recommend you try after this, it wants to naturally drag along that green axis that you can see there. If I click here and head in this direction, it wants to drag along the red axis. If I click and go straight up, it wants to drag along the blue axis. Now, the good part about that is that it does help your drawing a great deal, because as you know, when you're looking at whether it be houses or pieces of furniture or whatever, generally we're looking at things starting off with a lot of right angles. Now, you have to imagine these axes as part of the corner of a room. This part here will be where the floor meets the ceiling, where the floor meets the wall on one corner. This will be where the floor meets the wall on another corner, and this will be the vertical area where the two walls meet. I'll just show you when I draw this up. So if we turn that into a wall and this one into a wall, you can see what we've actually done. I'll just turn this around a bit so you can see it. This red axis is represented by this one, the green axis is represented by this one, and the blue axis is represented by that one. So if you imagine, when you're trying to think about the axes, that this is a floor, this is a wall, and this is a wall. So when you're trying to think about it, that's going to be the green or the red, depending on where it is. That's going to be the green or the red, and that's going to be the blue. Now, why it becomes important, if I get the line tool again, I want to put a line. I'll just turn this around a bit more. Get rid of this one. Okay, I want to draw a line straight up so that it's parallel with that wall, parallel with that as well. If I click on this, fortunately, it wants to go up, straight up. Notice it's going up the blue axis. If I go off to the side, you'll notice it changes to a black line. When you're going straight up, it goes blue. When you're going straight along in one direction, horizontally, it goes red or green. If you're drawing a line and it is black, unless you're drawing it from two different points, if you want something to be horizontal, it's got to be red or it's got to be green. If you want something to be vertical, it's got to be blue. Now, one of the other things that's very fortunate in SketchUp, and there's actually a really good YouTube video that's available in our resources to have a look at this, is that with lines you can do what's called referencing. If I'm trying to draw this line to the same height as there, all I have to do is go across, just rest my cursor on that point, and you'll notice, see those little red dots? I'll make it a bit larger. See those little red dots? That's telling me that I'm at the exact height of that other wall. And so if I click there and add that point to that point, If we were to check the height of both of these walls, if we click on there, down to that one, it's 5823.9 millimeters, and if we check this one, it goes down 5823.9 millimeters also. As I said, there are some really good YouTube videos which we've included in our resources on Moodle. You can check those out to find out more about referencing, because it becomes relevant with a lot of tools that you'll actually use.